Let me be brutally honest about something most women will never say out loud. The right kind of hug can create a deeper, more visceral sense of arousal than most kisses ever will. I have worked with women who completely reevaluated their relationships, who questioned their attraction to their current partners, all because of a single brief embrace from another man. A deliberate shift in how he held her, and suddenly her brain couldn't let him go. And I want you to stay with me on that for a moment, because I know some of you just felt something when I said that. Maybe a little recognition, maybe a little guilt, maybe just quiet, honest curiosity. And that reaction, whatever it was, is exactly why we're here today. My name is Sarah Johnson, and welcome to The Female Touch. And today we are going to talk about touch. Not in a surface-level way. Not in a way that makes you roll your eyes or feel like you're being talked down to. We're going to talk about it the way I wish someone had talked to me about it years ago, honestly, deeply, and with full respect for the intelligence you bring to this conversation. Now, before we go any further, I want to speak directly to you. Yes, you. The woman watching this right now, maybe with a cup of coffee. Maybe sitting quietly while the house is finally still. You might be in your 50s or close to it. You might be married or divorced or somewhere in between. You might be in a relationship that looks fine from the outside, but feels hollow in places you don't quite have words for. Or maybe you're newly single after decades, stepping back into the world of connection and wondering what on earth the rules are now. Wherever you are, I want you to know something. The things you feel, the quiet longings, the unspoken questions. The moments where you wonder if you're too old or too complicated or too far past some imaginary prime. Those feelings are not signs that something is wrong with you. They're signs that you're still very much alive. And that matters more than you know. Before we continue, a quick note. The Female Touch has a private membership community where women connect, share openly, and dive deeper into conversations like this. You'll get exclusive content, live sessions with me, and a supportive sisterhood. If that feels right for you, the link is below. And if this video resonates, a super thanks truly helps support the channel. Now let's continue. The average man's hug is like a handshake. Polite, procedural, and instantly forgotten. It communicates friendship, and that's precisely why it extinguishes desire. Think about the hugs you've received over the years. The side pat from a coworker at a retirement party. The quick squeeze from a brother-in-law at Thanksgiving. Even if you're being honest with yourself, the rote embrace from a partner who's hugged you 1,000 times the same way, the same duration, the same pressure. The same emotional distance dressed up as physical closeness. You stopped feeling those hugs a long time ago, didn't you? Not because you became numb, but because your nervous system, which is extraordinarily intelligent, learned that those hugs carried no real information. They were social pleasantries translated into physical form. And your body, wise as it is, filed them away under routine and moved on. But then there are the other ones. The hugs you still remember. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it was recent. Maybe you've only experienced one or two in your entire life. There was something different about the way he held you. Something you couldn't put your finger on, couldn't quite explain to your best friend over wine, couldn't logic your way through. You just know that when it ended, some part of you didn't want it to. And days later, maybe even weeks later, you found yourself thinking about it again. Not obsessively, not dramatically, just there. A quiet echo in the back of your body's memory. A sensation that had no clean explanation, but an undeniable presence. That is not a coincidence. That is neuroscience. And understanding it, really understanding it, can change the way you read every relationship in your life. Past, present, and the ones still to come. Here's what most people, men and women alike, fundamentally misunderstand about attraction at this stage of life. We've been taught, mostly by a culture that worships youth and novelty, that attraction is primarily visual and primarily fast. That it lives in the first glance, the first impression, the initial spark. And while those things certainly play a role, especially in the early moments of connection, they are far from the whole story. In fact, for women, and this is something the research supports quite clearly, attraction is far more somatic than most of us have been led to believe. Somatic simply means relating to the body, not the mind, not the imagination, not the narrative we build around someone. The body itself, the felt sense, the physical data that gets collected through skin, through breath, through the specific quality of another person's presence in space. And this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Because the body doesn't lie. The mind is a remarkable storyteller. It can convince you that you're attracted to someone because they're successful, because they're kind on paper, because they check boxes you decided were important 20 years ago. The mind can also convince you that you're not attracted to someone when everything logical says you should be. But the body? The body registers information that bypasses the rational mind entirely. It operates on a different frequency. And touch, deliberate, intentional, grounded touch, is one of the most direct pathways into that frequency that exists. I want to leave you with one final thought today. Understanding the somatic nature of your attraction isn't about overthinking. It's about listening. It's about trusting the physical data your body is already collecting, because your body has been trying to tell you the truth for a long time. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a woman. Let's call her Diane. Diane is 53 years old. She's been divorced for 4 years after a 22-year marriage that ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a long, quiet erosion. She's done a lot of work on herself, therapy, journaling, the kinds of conversations with girlfriends that go until midnight and leave you feeling both wrung out and strangely lighter. She's built a good life. She's proud of herself. And she's cautiously, carefully started dating again. She meets a man at a mutual friend's gathering. He's not the most conventionally attractive man in the room. He doesn't say anything particularly extraordinary. But when the evening ends and he hugs her goodbye, something happens. He doesn't rush it. He doesn't perform it. He simply arrives. His hand settles at the curve of her lower back with a calm certainty, and for about 4 or 5 seconds, he is completely, utterly still. No pat, no words, just presence. And Diane, who has been the most self-sufficient, self-contained version of herself for 4 solid years, feels something in her chest unlock that she had forgotten was locked. She drove home thinking about that hug. She told me about it 3 weeks later, almost embarrassed, as if feeling something so strongly from something so brief was somehow a character flaw. "It was just a hug, Sarah," she said. "Why can't I stop thinking about it?" And I told her what I'm going to tell you now. It wasn't just a hug, it was communication, and her body understood every word. Now let's talk about why this happens, because the science here is as beautiful as it is practical. When we experience a touch that registers as genuinely safe, warm, and grounded, not tentative, not grasping, not performative, but truly settled, our nervous system responds in a very specific way. It shifts from what we call sympathetic activation, the alert, scanning, socially aware state we spend most of our waking hours in, into parasympathetic activation. That's the state of rest, of receptivity, of genuine openness. It's the state where the body can truly feel. And here's the crucial detail. It is the only state in which a woman's body can feel both deeply safe and genuinely drawn towards someone at the same time. That dual experience, safety and desire coexisting, is rarer than any of us would like to admit. So many of the women I've worked with over the years, particularly women who've been through difficult relationships or long marriages that lost their warmth, have experienced safety and desire as almost mutually exclusive. Safety feels like a settled friendship that's lost its spark. Desire feels like an excitement tinged with anxiety. But the parasympathetic state, that genuine nervous system relaxation, creates the conditions where both can live in the same moment. And a grounded, unhurried, intentional touch is one of the fastest ways to get there. Think about the women in your own life. Think about yourself. How often do you actually relax into physical contact? Not just tolerate it, not just participate in it socially, but genuinely release into it? For many women over 50, the answer is rarely, if ever. We've spent decades being the ones who manage, who hold it together, who stay alert and responsive to everyone else's needs. Our nervous systems are often running on a low hum of vigilance that we've stopped noticing because it feels normal. And into that vigilance, a polite, procedural hug changes nothing. It's just more social management. But a touch that is still, that is intentional, that communicates, without a single word, I am here. I am not going anywhere, and you don't have to perform anything right now. That cuts through the vigilance like a key finding its lock. And the woman on the receiving end often can't even explain why she feels what she feels. She just knows she does. I want to take a moment here to address something you might be thinking. Because I know some of you are wondering, is this about manipulation? Is understanding the mechanics of touch just another way for men to learn techniques to use on women? And I think that's an important question. An honest question. One worth answering carefully. Here's my perspective, shaped by more than 2 decades of working with women. Understanding how touch works, what it communicates, and why it lands the way it does is not inherently manipulative. Knowledge never is. The intention behind the knowledge is what determines its character. A man who learns to be more present, more grounded, more genuinely attentive in his physical interactions is not necessarily learning to trick anyone. He may be learning to close the gap between who he is on the inside, caring, warm, genuinely connected, and how that registers on the outside. And for many women, particularly women who have been in long relationships where physical connection became routine and hollow, that kind of intentional presence from a partner is not a manipulation. It is a gift. What matters, what has always mattered, is whether the presence is genuine. You can feel the difference. Your body always knows. A man who is performing stillness is different from a man who is actually still. A man who is going through the mechanics without the genuine warmth behind them will create something that feels slightly off, slightly studied, slightly hollow. Your nervous system will register that, even if your mind takes longer to catch up. Trust your body. It is a remarkably accurate instrument. Now, let's talk about the framework itself, because I want you to be able to take something concrete from today's conversation, something you can use, whether you're reading your own responses, understanding what's happening in your current relationship, evaluating someone new in your life, or even understanding what to look for, what to ask for, what to notice. The framework I work with is built on 3 elements: tempo, stillness, and anchor point. And I want to walk you through each one with the depth it deserves. Let's start with tempo. And I want you to think about this, not just in terms of hugs, but in terms of physical presence generally. There is a pace that communicates ease and authority. And then there is a pace that communicates anxiety. Most social interactions, particularly in the early stages of connection, happen at a conversational, social tempo. Quick, efficient, friendly. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that in its proper context. But attraction, real attraction, lives in the deviation from that tempo. When someone moves more slowly than the social script demands, when they take their time with a greeting, when they don't rush to fill every silence with words or movement, something in your nervous system registers that as significant, as intentional, as safe in a very specific, compelling way. Because hurried energy says, I am anxious, I am uncertain, I need this to be over. And unhurried energy says, I am exactly where I want to be. There is nowhere else I need to be. And I am comfortable enough in my own skin to prove it. For women who've spent years surrounded by anxious energy, anxious partners, anxious parenting, anxious careers, the beautiful grinding anxiety of building a life, that quality of genuine unhurriedness is almost shockingly attractive, not because it's a technique, but because it's genuinely rare. Now let's talk about stillness, and I want to be precise here, because stillness is not the same as passive. Stillness is not a void. It is a presence. The distinction is everything. When someone is still, truly still, in a moment of physical contact, they are communicating something very specific. They are saying, I am not rushing to the next thing. I am not performing for you. I am not anxious about what you're thinking of me. I am simply, completely here. And for a woman whose nervous system is accustomed to monitoring, interpreting, managing, that quality of settled presence is profoundly disorienting in the best possible way. It gives her permission to stop performing too. It creates what I call a pocket of presence, a small, contained moment where the usual social machinery goes quiet. And in that quiet, she can actually feel. Think about how rarely that happens. Think about how many conversations you've had, how many physical interactions you've navigated, where both people were simultaneously performing, managing impressions, saying the right things, filling the silence before it became uncomfortable. Genuine stillness breaks that entirely. It is, as I said before, a language. And the women I've worked with who have experienced it, truly experienced it, describe it almost universally the same way. It felt like being seen. It felt like I could breathe. I didn't want it to end, and I didn't know why. And finally, the anchor point. Now the physical specifics here are real, and I'll explain them honestly. The placement of a hand communicates social category. High on the back, near the shoulders. This is the geography of platonic connection. It's where we put our hands when we want to convey warmth without intimacy. And there's nothing wrong with that in contexts where that's what's appropriate. But lower, at the curve of the lower back, the lumbar region, this is different territory. It's not inappropriate. It's not aggressive. But it is intimate. It communicates something different. It says, I am not just here as a friend. I see you. I am present with you in a way that is particular. And because it's paired with the slow tempo and the genuine stillness, it doesn't feel alarming. It feels grounding. It feels, paradoxically, like being held steady even while standing on your own 2 feet. The reason this specific point of contact is so powerful has to do with how our bodies store information. The lower back is an area of significant vulnerability and significant strength simultaneously. It bears the weight of the whole upper body. It's where we carry tension. It's where stress accumulates when we've been holding ourselves up for too long. A warm, firm, still hand placed there communicates something the body understands before the mind has a chance to analyze it. It says, I've got you. And for women who have been holding themselves up, holding everything up, for decades, that is not a small thing. Let me tell you about another woman. Her name is Carol. She's 58. She's been in a second marriage for 11 years. A marriage she describes as comfortable and kind, but physically distant, in a way that has slowly, quietly broken her heart. Her husband is a good man. She loves him. But somewhere along the way, they became roommates who care for each other, and the physical language between them narrowed down to a quick kiss on the cheek and an arm around the shoulder at family gatherings. She came to me because she'd met someone at her book club, a man she wasn't even particularly interested in romantically. But he'd hugged her hello one evening with such deliberate warmth, with such complete unhurried attention, that she'd thought about it for a week, and then spent the following 2 weeks feeling terrible about herself for thinking about it. What's wrong with me? She asked. I'm a married woman. I don't want to have an affair. I don't even want this particular man. But I can't stop thinking about that hug. What does that mean? And here's what I told Carol. And here's what I want to tell you. If any part of her story resonates, it doesn't mean you're unfaithful. It doesn't mean your marriage is unsalvageable. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means your body has a memory of what it feels like to be fully seen through touch, and that memory has been dormant for a long time. And it woke up, and that waking up is important information. Not about the man at the book club, about what you need, about what's been missing, about what is possible, even now, even at 58, even in a long marriage that has gotten quiet. Because here's the thing I want every woman in this audience to hear, and I want you to really let this land. The capacity for that kind of connection does not have an expiration date. Your nervous system's ability to respond to genuine, grounded, intentional presence does not age out. The longing for real physical connection that communicates, I see you, I am here, you are safe with me, does not become less valid on your 50th birthday, or your 60th, or your 70th. It is a fundamental human need. And you are a human being. Fully, completely, without asterisks. What changes as we age, and this is actually something beautiful, even when it doesn't feel that way, is that we become less willing to settle for the imitation of it. Younger women will often accept performing as if they're being seen because the performance is so consistent they almost forget it's a performance. But women over 50 have lived long enough to know the difference. They've felt the real thing, or they've felt its absence so clearly that they know exactly what they've been missing. And they're no longer willing to pretend. That clarity, as uncomfortable as it sometimes is one of the great gifts of this stage of life. So, what do you do with all of this? That's the question I want to address in these final pages of our conversation, because I never want to leave you simply aware of a problem without also equipping you with something to move toward. First, I want to invite you to pay attention differently. The next time you receive a hug from anyone, a partner, a friend, a new person in your life, notice what your body registers before your mind has a chance to interpret it. Notice the tempo. Notice whether there is stillness or restlessness in the contact. Notice where the hands are and what they communicate. Notice whether your nervous system settles or stays alert. This is not about analyzing people or grading interactions. It's about learning to read the language your body has been speaking all along, the language it was designed to read, the one it has never forgotten even if you've trained yourself to override it. Second, if you are in a relationship that has grown physically distant, I want to gently encourage you to bring what you've learned today into that conversation, not as an accusation, not as a criticism, but as an invitation. The language of intentional presence can be learned. Men who love their partners and have simply fallen into the routine of procedural touch can learn to be more present, more grounded, more deliberate. And sometimes it only takes one honest, open conversation to set that in motion. I need more of this from you is not a demand. It is a gift. It tells him something real. And the men who love you will want to know. Third, if you are navigating connection as a single woman, whether newly single or long comfortable in your independence, know that you deserve the real thing, not the performance of it, not the approximation, the genuine article. And you are equipped to recognize it, because your body has been keeping that knowledge safe for you this whole time. The average touch is processed by the mind. It gets filed under social, polite, acceptable. The kind of touch we've been talking about today goes somewhere else entirely. It gets recorded by the body. It leaves what I've come to call a somatic imprint, a physical memory that your nervous system holds long after the moment has passed. And when you experience that kind of touch, it is your body telling you, clearly and without ambiguity, that something real just happened, that someone was genuinely present with you, and that presence is rare enough and valuable enough that your whole system wanted to hold on to it. You deserve that kind of presence, not as a special occasion, not as a rare exception to a lifetime of polite, procedural connection, as a standard, as an expectation, as the thing you ask for, look for, and refuse to stop looking for until you find it. I'm Sarah Johnson. This is The Female Touch, and everything I do here is for you, the woman who is still figuring it out, still feeling it all, still beautifully, defiantly alive. If today's conversation moved something in you, please share it. With a friend who needs to hear this, with a sister who's been quietly struggling, with yourself, by watching it again on a night when you need to be reminded of your own depth and your own worth. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a conversation like this one. Join our membership community, the link is right below, because the work we do together in that space goes even deeper. And if this video helped you feel seen today, even a little, a super thanks is a wonderful way to say so. It tells me that this kind of honesty matters, and it makes it possible for me to keep showing up here for you. Until next time. A polite touch is processed by the mind. A present touch is recorded by the body, and you, my dear, were made to be met fully,